sort of inspired me. I want to do one of my favourite slow cooked dishes, which is the porchetta. It's an Italian classic, but we're going to make it with some great British pork. Let's go. So what we've got here is a middle of pork, which is basically the loin right here, which is the basically half of the spinal column, which is where your loin chops come from. And then we've got the belly here. Some porchettas are made with just the loin, some porchettas are made with just belly, but in my opinion the best porchettas are made with the belly and the loin. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to remove this kidney that we've got here and take off this leaf fat that's on the inside. That's fat that protects a lot of the organs and sort of insulates. We love fat when we're cooking, but not this specific kind of fat. It can get a bit chalky when you cook with it, so we're going to take that out, and then that's going to allow us to remove these bones and then stuff the porchetta and roll it. So I do a little incision at the top here, which will allow me to get a handle on all of it. I'm going to remove the tenderloin, which is basically, on a cow it would be equivalent to the fillet steak. On a pig we call it a tenderloin, and that runs on the inside of the spine. It's the muscle that a pig would use to rotate like this, and you never really see pigs rotating like that. It's super tender, but we don't really need it for what we're doing here, so I'm just going to take that out. Next up, I'm going to remove this first section of ribs. You can try and come under and take the whole plate off as one, but I find making an incision through here where you would conventionally cut the pork chops off allows you to get those bones off a little bit easier. It's going to mark out my line, draw that all the way down. Remember, I don't want to cut all the way through to take the belly off. I just want to take. Now I'm just going to saw through just to the point where I'm just going through that bone without going too far into the belly. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pare in with my boning knife and just expose where those ribs are and open that out a little bit. Turn that to myself, and then I can bring my boning knife just underneath to take out those belly ribs. So we're not going to throw these away. We can use these ribs, utilize them later for cooking in some other way, so I'll keep them. I'm going to take off this rib section from the loin. Similar sort of principle, just trying to get my knife super close to the bone without going too close to the eye of the meat. And I'm just going to work my way along, doing the same thing. And do the same at this end. Next up, I need to work out exactly how I'm going to roll this. And here you've got two sort of really different cuts next door to each other. You've got the loin, which is pretty lean, suited to like quite quick cooking conventionally. And then you've got the belly, which is quite fatty, fair bit of connective tissue. That's more suited to slow cooking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the loin on the inside so that the belly is surrounding it, and that is going to expose the belly to more direct heat and give a little bit of protection to the loin, because we don't want that to dry out when we cook. Getting up the edge of this belly a little bit, just so we're nice and uniform. Then I'm going to practice rolling this inside. And what we want to do is we want to get it all tucked in, but we don't want this skin here to be rolling on the inside, because the objective of the skin when making porchetta is to get it nice and crispy. If we let that roll inside, it's not going to be exposed to the heat and the air, and that's not going to crisp up. So what we'll do is we'll take a little bit of this skin off here from this section. So next up, I'm just going to open up this loin a little bit. Some people, when they do a porchetta, like to open it up completely, but I prefer just to create a little bit of space around it to get the stuffing in, whilst preserving the shape of the loin. So just go along the seam that connects it to the belly, and just open that up a little bit. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to score the skin. Now I remember when I first moved down to London, I had a conversation with an old Italian man about porchetta. And he told me, when you make a porchetta, your neighbours need to smell you cooking it, and they need to hear you eating it. And the way we're going to achieve that is we're going to score this skin so that we're going to get a great crackling on it. I'm going to score this just using the very tip of my knife. We want to create the opportunity for air to go in there, the hot air, but we don't want to go so deep that we're going down to the meat, because that would dry out the meat. Going through here. What this will also do is it will create crevices for salt to get in, which is another component that will help us crisp up that skin when we cook. Next up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to score the inside of the joint for a different reason. The reason I'm doing this is because I want the stuffing that we put inside here to be able to penetrate the meat and get the flavour in deep as possible. I'm not going to go too deep, just enough so that our salt, pepper, fennel seeds and parsley can get embedded. So first we're going to go in with the salt. A lot of people will just salt the porchetta on the skin and a little bit to season afterwards, but I like to get mine on the inside so that flavour penetrates all the way through. We're using coarse sea salt here because it's the best salt. And we're going to liberally apply that to the whole inside of this piece. Next up, we're going to go in with pepper and do the same thing. Generously get a good covering of that all the way over. Next up, we're going to go with the fennel seeds. And I know normally if I was cooking with fennel seeds, I'd try and put them through the pestle and mortar and break them up a bit. But because we're going to slow cook this so well, these are going to break down and soften during the cooking process. So we can just chuck them straight in. Then we're going to add our garlic. Now normally for cooking, obviously you chop garlic up small, but same principle as the fennel seeds. This is going to get a really good long slow cook, so rather than cutting up the garlic, I'm just going to bash it and chuck it in. Pour all of that out. Get that rubbed into all of the nooks and crannies. Try and get it in those grooves that we've made by scoring earlier. Next up, we're going to go in with the parsley. Now I know a lot of you at home are probably looking and thinking, that's a fuckload of parsley and a fuckload of garlic. But if you're making something like this, you want to taste the ingredients that are in it. It's going to cook for hours and hours. So we're going to really stuff it full of this parsley. Now normally I would also chuck in rosemary, but I've got a plan to put that in with my potatoes tomorrow. So today the only herb we're going in with is parsley. So now what we've got to do is just roll this bad boy up. So start with the loin towards the inside. Want to get this nice and tightly tucked as best we can. So now we're going to tie this up all the way along. Super important that we get these strings nice and tight so that we don't let any of the goodness escape. I'm going to do one in the middle and then one on each end to begin with to try and lock everything in. So now that's all tied up, I'm just going to hang it up in the fridge overnight, let those flavors marinate for a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a little trick that I like to do whenever I want to get really good crackling. I boiled the kettle and I'm just going to pour this over the top of the skin. What that's going to do is it's going to cause the skin to contract. That's going to allow more salt and more hot air to get in, which is going to help it crackle up better. Take it out of there, just let it dry a little. So we're just going to add a little bit more salt on the skin. And then she's ready to go in the oven. We're going to go really high heat, about 220 for about 25 minutes, and then we're going to drop it down really low to probably about 150 and leave it there for a good 2 or 3 hours. And I'm just going to peel a few potatoes to do some roasties, because we're going to feed all the staff here today with a porchetta. And I'm going to cook these roasties with a new product that I'm super excited about, our new homemade beef dripping. Next up, I'm just going to chuck a load of this new product, the beef dripping, in with my potatoes to roast. This is going to help them get nice and crispy. So the porchetta we think is done. Going to bring her out to rest, and we've just got to let the potatoes finish, and then it's time to eat. Picked a little bit of this lovely rosemary from the garden. Just going to strip that off. Chuck a bit of that in with the potatoes. Just give them a bit of that fragrance. So let's see if it's cooked. She's looking good. She's sounding good. Oh good, the judge has just arrived.
Wait.
Ho-hee-ho.
I'm not such a spatty nose. There's Leo nips all the crackling. Good old Leo.
Walking out, it's got a smile at the back.
Really?
Yeah.
She's been exempt, I don't know.